Many in that age group are also delaying starting a family. The birth rate for women between 20 and 29 years old on the decline since 2008 and is now at a record low. The CDC says the U.S. birth rate went up by 1% in 2014, the first increase in 7 years, thanks largely to older moms.
We are bombarded daily with how one little blue pill will save everything. Marriages, self-esteem, maybe even the shockingly low birth rate among Americans. It's that last one that had researchers talking and now has them showing some real results. When the time is right, call the experts. We did. Rooney Nelson is founder of the Nelson Group and at one time was part of the group working for Pfizer that helped launch Viagra. Joined by his colleague, Dr. Sal Giorgianni, another part of that very same team who made history. Gentlemen, I thank you so much for being with us. And Rooney, let me start with you. Congratulations. According to your studies, you guys are the proud daddies of 1.5 million kids.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Especially given that Father's Day has just happened. I guess that's a pretty wonderful sentiment. But what we did find is that in the 18 years that Viagra has been on the market, when we went back and looked at the data, Viagra has probably resulted in help couples over the last 18 years have a total of at least 1.5 million children. And in fact, the numbers are probably a lot higher.
Dr. Sal, I would imagine that when you were creating Viagra, you didn't actually think of this as one of the main side effects or one of the main advantages, or were you?
Well, it was something that we thought about, but we didn't really plan, and we had no idea of knowing how large that number would be. So there were a lot of things in this complex market that the team worked on to really deal with these unexpected sort of things. So we knew it might happen, but we had no idea how big it would be.
So I guess the big question is here, are sexual performance drugs then, doctor, a fertility drug in themselves?
Well, not necessarily. There are some things that you define fertility as the ability to conceive, and then drugs such as Viagra, which help maintain or sustain an erection that would allow for conception, kind of a different category.
Rooney, according to your figures here, it showed that Viagra was a contributing factor in at least 6% of the approximately 3.9 million annual births in the U.S. over the last 18 years. Why did you do a study like this? What made you say that we have to take a look at what we're doing here?
Great question. One of the things that we, Dr. Sal and I would talk often, and we do a lot of talks around the country on team performance and team improvement. And one of the things we wanted to look at was, okay, we knew that Viagra, when I was running the team, when we launched it, we knew that it was an important drug. But oftentimes when you're working on a project or you're working on a team, you don't know exactly what it could end up happening. And what we thought about and we realized was, oh my goodness, not only did we help millions and millions of Americans have sex, right? Millions and millions of men have erections. But when we went back and looked at it, we said, wait a minute, we've probably helped these couples generate millions of new lives. And that was, to us, very humbling, and also really sort of put into perspective the work that we've done and did at that time and what the other teams have continued on. So the reason we looked at it was just to really get a sense of, what has been the real impact of the work that we did. And it was pretty humbling. And I think the message we have for a lot of people is that sometimes you're working on teams and you don't realize the real impact of what you might end up doing. But it could be pretty powerful.
Dr. Sal, there's a lot of people out there, religious leaders as well, who look at something like this and they don't like artificial means of any sort. How did you get around that when you were doing this, when you were creating the drug itself? Because I would imagine you first got a lot of people saying, wait a minute, we don't want to use this.
Well, actually, it was quite the opposite. Viagra is not something that's artificially producing the ability to conceive, but what it does is allows for the natural physiologic process to proceed. And conception, childbearing in relationships is something that fits very, very well with the dogma of most churches. So quite frankly, it was harder to persuade someone in the medical community of the drug's value than the people in the religious communities.
Is it fair to say, though, that the religious groups are not very in favor of the female Viagra side?
Oh, it was a little bit different story there. It's interesting you raise that point. That doesn't fit as well with dogma and religious sex because it's not something that they consider. The pleasure for women is not something that they consider essential to conception, essential to carrying on the religious activity. So some groups were okay with it, and some groups just didn't see it.
Rooney, I only got about 30, 40 seconds left. Is it fair to say then that Viagra now and these studies that you're proving the numbers here are basically taking this off the taboo list? I mean, people would make jokes about it. They would snicker about it. But at this point now, what you've got is something that proves to people, hey, look, wait a minute. We've got something that helps families and helps people have children.
Well, I think what it really proves is that when you work on any product, and Viagra is really just a great example, that in this economy, you never know where it may go. And when you're lucky enough to work with a great team and with a great bunch of individuals, you may start with one mission, which is, in this case, erections, and you may end up doing something that is, in fact, life-changing. And so I think the bigger message is really one around the importance of how well people work together and the results that you may end up making a difference in the community and in the world at large.
And you two have changed a lot of lives and those 1.5 million babies as well. Rooney Nelson, Dr. Sal Giorgianni, want to thank you very much for your time. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, and stay with us. We'll continue right here where we question everything on MidPoint.